Okay, at this time we're going to recap some important information about all these disclosures we've just talked about. All right, the duties owed form. Again, filling out this area is pretty self-explanatory, but main things that you need to understand is a client needs to initial and may or may not. It needs a signed date and time. You cannot have any blanks. This form must be completed prior to your client signing any other documents per the state of Nevada. If you're working with more than one agent in the transaction, on your team, for example, not the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, the other agent, but if you have a partner, then you want to check yes, and you're going to fill out this form also. Again, signed date and time by the client, okay? And the consent to act form, you're going to have a description of the property. It's for sale or lease, the licensee's number, the licensee's name, who you're affiliated with, print both names of the clients, explain all this information that it is a conflict of interest, okay? And tell them that they're not required to consent to this if they don't want to. There's other ways around this. And then have the seller sign date and time and the buyer sign date and time. Extremely important. The seller's real property disclosure. A few things you need to know about this. One, you as the agent may never assist a seller in filling out this form, but you must ensure that it's filled out completely and correctly. Also, this is only what the seller currently knows about the property or knows about the property if it's a previous condition question. All right, anything that's a yes must be explained in the explanation page, and you need to ensure that it's filled out correctly, and a buyer's agent needs to ensure that it's filled out correctly before their buyer signs it. This form must be given from the seller to the buyer at least 10 days prior to conveyance of the property, and the buyer has 4 working days to decide if they accept that or not. Again, any other material defect, something that breaks with the house, anything that goes wrong during a transaction must be redisclosed on a separate piece of paper, for example, and the buyer again will have 4 days to look at that particular subject. Construction defect disclosure. If the seller marks yes on the page 2 that the property was subject to a government lawsuit involving construction defect, then they must disclose all of the information about that lawsuit and that property and whatever the construction defect was. Okay, there are forms for this. Some offices have their own forms. It varies, but this information must be given from the seller to the buyer regarding all information on construction defect, inspection reports, everything. Okay. Lead-based paint. Lead-based paint is any house built prior to 1978. Must have this form. This is a federally required form, not state, federally. All right? You must also give a pamphlet, protection for your family from lead in your home. There's a pamphlet that goes with this form. Okay? All agents and a buyer and a seller must sign this form, and the seller's agent must initial here stating that he's informed the seller of their responsibility to complete this information and give all their information that they know about the house. Again, disclosure of death in a property, not required unless the house caused the issue. Okay. HIV/AIDS, if somebody dies of HIV/AIDS in the house, federal law requires that it is not disclosed because basically it has nothing to do with the house. Okay, and again, the residential disclosure guide that you must give to your client has to be signed for on this form. Now, there are other places that people sign for it, but the state requires this one be completed. It is in the back of the residential disclosure guide itself. Okay, that was disclosures number 1. Again, I'm Tori Ramey for RD Academics. Thank you for watching today, and make sure that you download the attachments for disclosures number 1, and we'll see you in disclosure number 2.